I'd like to officially welcome you to 7 Steps to Building a Book Coaching Business with Jennie Nash. I do have monthly sponsors of my newsletter and these free sessions. This month's sponsor is Britta Jensen. She runs the writing consultancy. And to subscribers and to watchers of this free session, she offers a free consultation as long as you book by July 30. That link is right here on the slide. It's the bit.ly link, bit.ly/editing free call. If I have gone by this too quickly, I will put that link into the chat. And of course, you can also catch it again on the recording. So, about Jennie, just quickly, because I know she has a few things to say herself about her background. She began coaching other writers when Lisa Cron of Story Genius, a great book, asked for guidance. And that's been quite some time ago, I believe, Jennie. What year was that?
It was 2009.
Yeah. So, that I don't know if you consider that the kind of the first spark of your coaching, professional coaching, but what a
It,
great way to
it
start.
absolutely was. It absolutely was the start. It was the start of everything. It gave me the opportunity to sort of have blue sky thinking about how would I help a writer who was ready, willing, open, and able if there were no constraints on how I could help. And we had a magically wonderful time helping her get first one book and then two books and then three books out. And I'm forever in debt to her for giving me that trust.
How wonderful. So after that, Jennie established Author Accelerator in 2014. And as of today, that program has trained more than 100 coaches. And of course, this is why she's here today to tell you about coaching, if this is something that you want to consider. But I don't want anyone to forget that Jennie is an author in her own right. She has published numerous books, both nonfiction books for writers as well as novels. And maybe she'll say a little bit more about these as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, Jennie, and then you can take over. And I won't interrupt unless there's just a burning question you absolutely must answer.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me here today. I'm so excited to be here and talk about my favorite topic of all time. So this is what we're talking about: the 7 steps to building a successful book coaching business. And I don't have to talk about myself because Jane just did. Thank you for that introduction. And we also spoke about my books. The 3 books on writing are the blueprint books: Blueprint for a Memoir, Blueprint for a Book, which is a novel, and Blueprint for nonfiction. And those books are based on a framework that I've created for helping writers get their ideas out of their head and onto the page. They are not craft books. They're books about the work of writing and the foundational things that we have to do when we are doing that very primary work. My clients have, starting with the blueprint, I've helped my clients write all kinds of books in many different genres, and they have won all kinds of accolades and awards, landed big 6-figure book deals, been published by many big 5 publishers, and also lots of hybrid and independent publishing paths, and won all kinds of awards. And that's all well and good. But the thing a writer always wants is to have an impact, to have their book hit their ideal reader in a way that is powerful and meaningful. And that's what I consider the real work that I help people do, is to raise their voice, claim their story and their idea, and write something that's going to have an impact on the reader. That's the real prize at the end of the day that we are all after, and that we can control. We can always control what happens in the marketplace, but we can control what we create. So the question that I want to start with today is, what is a book coach? And how can we think about what this work is? So the first thing to say is that a book coach is an editor. A lot of people ask, what's the difference between a book coach and an editor? And a book coach is doing editing. We're providing feedback on people's pages. And we're usually doing that. The difference is that when you go to get edited, you send your pages in, and the editor does that work and in one time and space in time, and then sends them back to the writer. And the writer then is left to execute what those changes are. And a book coach is typically working with that writer over time. So we're providing that feedback, but we're providing it while the writer is writing and throughout the creative process. So not just when they're finished. Anybody who's ever been edited usually loves the process, because there's something about having someone pay attention to your work and to closely care about it as much as you care about it that is incredibly powerful. We all love that process and want that process. And a book coach is providing that over time. So I often think about what a book coach is doing is going upstream from the place where an editor usually works to where the ideas start and where they're developed and where they are put down on the page and then throughout time. So I think of it as going to where the mistakes can be prevented before the writer works on an entire book and has those mistakes baked into it. A book coach is also a teacher. So since we're providing feedback while the writer writes, we can teach them and really dig into what their particular needs are. So in other words, if someone is struggling with what exactly is a scene, or what exactly does show don't tell really mean, or on the nonfiction side, how can we present a logical argument? How can I take my idea and convey it in a way that is persuasive? So we're helping the writer become a better writer with their particular work, not theoretical, but actually working on what they're working on so that they can improve it as they go. A book coach is also a project manager. We help writers with their habits and with accountability. Anybody who has ever had a deadline in any sort of work environment knows how motivating it can be to have somebody else waiting for your pages. And this is very true with writers and book coaches as well. Oftentimes, my clients will tell me that they get the work done the night before it's due to me because they know it's due to me. It's that idea of having someone else waiting, and that managing a project through time and helping a writer get to the end is an incredibly important part of what we do. We help the writer stay on track. We help them define the goal that they're going for, whether that is wanting to have a draft of a manuscript done by a certain amount of time, wanting to have some sort of milestone out in the future where they're going to pitch a book or finish a book, or whatever the goal that they have. We're helping them to meet that goal and keeping them on track to that goal. So if in the work that you do now, you like project management, you're good at project management, you are good at telling people what to do and having them follow you, that is an aspect of the work that we do as well. A book coach is a publishing guide. There are so many changes going on in our industry all day, every day, and it can be very confusing and complex, even for those of us who've been in it our whole careers. For somebody who's a new writer coming into publishing, trying to figure it out, trying to understand how the money flows, trying to understand what the different options for publishing are, what are the pros and cons, what are the red flags, how are they going to not get fleeced? All of these questions that writers have are ones that book coaches can help them answer. We can help them know what they want, figure out the best way to get it, figure out what their options are. If they're going to go into a traditional publishing environment, we can help them all the way through to evaluating agent offers that they might get, figuring out why they're being rejected, if that's what's happening. I always think of book coaching as ending when you hand that project off to the next stage. So you're either handing the writer off to an agent or an editor, or that book is being put into production. Usually book coaching ends at that point. Some book coaches certainly could choose to help writers with the production end of things or the marketing side of things. We do a lot of consulting on marketing when we're putting together goals and book proposals. So it is a skill and a talent a lot of book coaches have. But I tend to think of book coaching as ending when the writing is finished, when the work of writing is finished. A book coach works with the writer and the writing. That's the biggest distinction that I see in my mind between what book coaches do and what other people who help writers do. We're often working with the writer on the emotions that they feel around their work and the doubts that they might have, and helping them with their habits. I always am very careful to say that we are not a therapist unless you're somebody who's trained in therapy. There's a line that we need to stay on the correct side of that line and not get out of our lane. And there are certain situations and times when I will suggest to a client that they do work with a therapist, particularly if they're working with a past trauma that they're writing about in a memoir or even in a novel. If some things are coming up that are not mine to handle, that is not in my right or wheelhouse, that I speak to the writer about getting that help elsewhere. So we're not a therapist, but we are working with the writer in terms of their feelings around their writing. And oftentimes writers end up feeling as if the work that they've done with the book coach is as powerful as therapy. But I think that that comes from the close focus on the work and the close focus on this thing that they care so much about and that they've probably wanted to do for a very long time. A book coach is someone who runs their own business. So they're an entrepreneur. They're launching a business. They're going to be involved in setting prices. They're going to be involved in marketing and going out and getting their own clients. And this is an important distinction in my mind as well, because there's a lot of freelance editors, and freelance editors tend to take work that's given to them by other people. They might be part of an online marketplace, or they might be connected with a institution or organization of some kind who's funneling writers to them. That can be part of what book coaches do, but usually what happens is once someone learns the business of book coaching, they learn that there's a better way than taking whatever clients come to them. So however you want to set your business up or think about it, or whatever philosophy you have of it, I do think it's important to realize that if you're starting a business, you're starting a business. It's very much like writing a book in that way. It is going to be a long-term commitment. It's going to take investment of time, effort, energy, and money. It's something that you can change and grow to suit your lifestyle and to be what you want it to be. But it is starting a business. And I think that's something important to define. So why would anybody want to do this work? I think there are three main reasons. The first is that you get to use your talent and experience to make a positive impact on writers. As I said before, the publishing industry is very complex and confusing for people who are approaching it for the first time. And it's constantly changing. Every day, something new is coming up, a new business model, a new technology, a new way to bring books to life. And a book coach can be of service to writers of all kinds if we can help them understand these changes and understand their place in the publishing industry. So it feels like a very positive thing to be doing to help writers in this way. And a lot of book coaches, as we'll see later, specialize in helping particular kinds of writers. And so it can be very mission-based in that way as well. The second reason to be a book coach is that you can make enough money to support your own writing or start a whole new career. People often ask me how much money, and it's of course hard to say. I don't know how much time you have to devote to book coaching, whether you're going to do this as a side gig to support your writing, or after hours of another job, or maybe you're raising children or caring for other relatives and you're doing this on the side, or maybe you're switching over from a career and going all in on book coaching. That's obviously going to impact how much money you can make. It's also going to depend on the experience that you bring to the table. I believe very strongly that book coaching is a different skill than writing. It is, you don't have to have a track record as a bestseller writer, or have landed an agent your own self, or have any evidence that your own writing has been met with success in the marketplace. That is not a criteria to be a good book coach. As with so many other endeavors, like where we're talking today, we've just recently seen the March Madness basketball tournament, and sometimes the best coaches were not necessarily the best players. Coaching is a different thing altogether. So you can be excellent at this without having had success as a writer your own self. That being said, if you have had some sort of success as a writer or some sort of success in another realm, you can leverage that experience to make more money. We just certified a writer at Author Accelerator. I'm sorry, a coach. We certified a coach at Author Accelerator who has written 50 books. She's a middle grade writer in the nonfiction space. She's had a big successful career as a writer. She is going to be able to go out there and charge more money and make more money faster than somebody who doesn't have that experience. But at the same time, we've had people come into our program who are experts in another realm. Maybe they came from PR or marketing, and they can bring those skills to the table as well. So whatever you're bringing to this work is going to have an impact on how much money you can make. But just to give some hard numbers, what we see among our coaches in the first year is that on average, they make $30,000 their first year working part-time. Usually in the next 2 years, so in years 2 and 3, that number increases significantly. And people who are ambitious and who are good at the entrepreneurial side of this can be making multiple six figures a year. So the range of how much money you can make is it's a big range. So where you fall in that is going to depend on all of those things. In addition to money, the third reason anybody might want to do this is freedom to work when, where, and how you want, and freedom to work with books. Usually people who are drawn to this work have loved books all their life. They're the people who were reading under the covers with the flashlight when they were kids, and they have been wanting to work in the world of stories or ideas for a very long time, or they already do that in some capacity. Maybe they're a teacher or a professor or write in their day job in some way. I see a lot of lawyers become book coaches. I see a lot of professionals who write. People come from, for example, the tech world, where they are involved in writing manuals that help us all learn how to manage or function with our technology, and they take that experience and that training and bring it over into book coaching. So they get to come closer to the work that they've always really loved, which is books and stories and ideas. So it's those are the three big reasons: having a positive impact on writers and working in that creative space, making enough money to support your writing or start a whole new career, and having freedom to work in the way that you want. So let's look at the 7 steps that it takes to do this and build a successful business. Step 1 is decide to take the leap. And that may sound sort of simplistic, but you've got to make a decision. And what I find is that it's like anything else. You can say that you want to do this and sort of kind of halfway do it and not ever really get there. The same is true with writing books. You've got to make a commitment to do this and to take a leap at a certain point. There's probably never going to be evidence that you will succeed, because it might be something you've never done before. So there is a leap of faith involved. And to take that leap, I think it helps to know exactly what you're getting into. So we're in a golden age of online businesses. It is incredible what's happening in this space and what people are doing in this space and how people are able to leverage the internet and this global reach that you can have from an office in your home and create an entire business. So knowing what that takes and what that means and what launching a venture in this time is about is important. And being honest with yourself about what it takes. If book coaching sounds like a dream job, but you can't stand technology, you're going to have to be thinking about how to do that work in a physical way in your own town or in your own way, and really know what is going to go into it. And so it's educating yourself about what it takes and what parts of that you want to do and what parts of it scare you, what parts of you might need to learn. Coming to this presentation today is a great start to that, is getting a sense of what is this and what would it take for you to do it. You also want to make sure then that it's a good fit. Writers tend to have a lot of the key characteristics of being a good book coach, including creativity, curiosity, empathy, being able to communicate effectively. But you want to make sure that you are what you're bringing is a good fit for this work. And here too, you want to educate yourself both on the demands of being a book coach and your capacity for doing it. So as I go through these 7 steps today on that worksheet that Jane shared, take notes as I go and ask yourself, do I feel like I've got this? Do I feel like I'm good here? Do I feel like I have something to learn here? So you can kind of assess as we go. And when we get to the Q&A portion, we can talk about anything that makes you nervous. And if I haven't addressed that already. You also want to just make that decision to commit. As I said before, the commitment is important. If you sort of slip into this, you might start with some bad habits. You might lay a foundation that's really hard to undo. I think it's important to commit to yourself, to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it with intention and be conscious about wanting to do it. You know, it's hard to start something that is scary or new, or that you're afraid of. And it's fine to think about it for a while, but at a certain point, I think you do have to say, I'm going to do this. And I keep referring to writing books because so many of the things we're talking about are parallel to writing books. And this is exactly the same with writing a book. You know, I hear people all the time who say that they've been trying to write a book for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. And usually what that means is they've been writing the first 3 chapters over and over and over again through that whole time, maybe of the same book, maybe of a different book, but they haven't committed to actually doing the work. And that's not to say some books take 10 or 15 years to write. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being a dabbler. This is a term my friend Dan Blank often uses. He talks about dabblers versus doers. And dabbling is you sort of think you're doing the thing, but you're not really doing the thing. I think it's important to, at a certain point, make a decision. I'm going to do this thing. So step 2, after you've committed to doing this thing, is to build your skills. And there are 3 skills that are necessary for being a good book coach. The first are editorial skills. You need to be able to accurately assess the genre that you will be coaching and to give effective editorial feedback. So this means being able to evaluate on the level of the line and the scene and the chapter and the entire narrative design. You have to be able to give effective feedback. That's what a book coach is going to be doing. I think it means also developing a philosophy for feedback that is, in my view, needs to be empathetic and honest and designed to achieve the outcomes that you promise. I am adamant about the coaches that I train not promising things they can't deliver. You can't promise a writer that they're going to get a book deal. You can't promise that they're going to make a lot of money. You can't promise any of the outcomes that writers often say they want. So what can you promise? You have to think about that, and we'll talk about that in some other steps as we go. But long story short is you need the editorial skills to deliver what you're going to promise. If you're promising that you can analyze their story and help them find the weaknesses in them and help them shore it up, you better know how to do that. So editorial skills are fundamental. The second set of skills are book coaching skills. So as we saw before, coaching is as much about helping the writer as it is helping with the writing. So you need to understand how to deal with people and their projects and how to motivate them, how to hold them accountable, how to communicate for what's going to come next, and how to help them reach their goals. That means helping them define their goals, helping them understand their goals, And it also means learning how to protect yourself from getting sucked into the emotions that come up in the creative process. Coaching, effective coaching, uh, is setting limits and boundaries and running a good business around the work that you're doing as well. So that it's a different set of skills from editorial skills. The coaching is actually helping people over time and how you help them achieve the things that they need and help them so that you can promise an outcome that you can deliver. The third set of skills are business and entrepreneurial skills. And this is the area where many people who are curious about book coaching get really nervous. They say that they're not sure how they're going to find clients and they don't know what to charge. They often say things like they hate marketing, they hate social media. And the truth is that at the end of the day, all business is really just about people. It's just about connecting with people, understanding people, being in relationship with people, having integrity around people. And I believe that people who love books and love reading have spent a lifetime building these kinds of skills. I think that they're really good at these kinds of skills. Oftentimes, the world has told them that they're not. I myself was an English major, and the world sort of tells you that you're never going to make any money and you're not going to keep pace with the bankers and all those sorts of things. And we tend to take those messages in and think, well, we're not any good at business and entrepreneur skills. And this was very personal to me in my own life. My husband has an MBA in finance, and I always thought, well, he's the business person. He's the person who understands all these things. But it turns out that I do too, and I do in many ways better than he does. And I have made that commitment to do this work and found that I'm quite good at it. And a lot of other people that I see coming into this work are quite good at it too. So if the business and entrepreneurial skills make you nervous, that's fine. Make a note about which part of it, and we'll see if we can answer some of those questions as we keep going deeper into this. So step 3 in building an effective book coaching business is deciding who you will serve. I think of this as finding your zone of genius. The biggest mistake that new book coaches make is thinking that they're going to build a business serving fiction writers, for example, or some other large general category of writer. And this is the road to chaos and ruin. It leads you to take whatever clients you can get or whatever clients are handed to you. It's what business coach Dallas Travers calls accidental clients. And a business built on accidental clients is never going to be sustainable. You need to be very specific about who you're serving and how you're serving them. So you want to think about what they're writing, but you also want to think about who they are as a person, where they are in the creative process, and where you're going to meet them. A book coaching business that's focused on helping people start is very different than one that's focused on helping people revise or rescue a manuscript. And that is very different in turn from somebody who's helping people who's really focused on the pitch part of the process. And so it's honing in on phase of creativity, type of writer. And by that, I mean, are these writers perfectionists? And that's what you're helping with. Are they busy executives and you're helping them finish a book in the period of time that they have? Do they share some characteristics like BIPOC writers or LGBTQ plus writers? So kind of writer is important. And then what they're writing. And the more specific you can be here, the better. I have seen people build businesses where they're helping people write novels, speculative fiction novels about environmental and social justice, that kind of narrowness. And the reason that this works, as we'll see, is you become known for that thing. You become good at this thing. You can build systems around that thing. It is the path to success is to choose who you're serving and to be very specific about this. So the zone of genius is a place where you are doing work that you love. You love who you're serving. You know you're good at it. You know you can help them. It's effective for your clients. You're serving them in an effective way. You're giving them an outcome that they need and desire and that they will pay for. So that means it's sustainable for you to offer. You can't run a good business over time if you're not making good money. You're going to be resentful. You're going to be burned out. It's not going to go well. So it has to be all three things. It has to be work that you love and you're great at, work that is effective for your clients so that they know the value you're bringing, and work that is making money so that it's sustainable for you to offer. So in order to do this, you're going to choose who that writer is and then define the problems you're helping them solve. So once you know that ideal client, you can get very clear about what you're helping them to do. And you need to be able to articulate that in language that resonates with them so that they say to themselves, finally, somebody who can help me with my specific challenge and meet me exactly where I am. One of the weaknesses of the writing education system, as I see it, is that people come into workshops and the workshops are usually designed to teach something that can be taught in a given period of time. So whether that's a weekend workshop or a 6-week workshop or a 10-week workshop, and you're going to be learning a scene or how to write dialogue or how to develop character or how to design a good table of contents for nonfiction. And it is largely ignoring the internal reality of those writers and what they're bringing to the table in terms of their background and experience and all of those things. So when you can meet a writer where they are and serve them exactly where they need to be, that's the beginning of a really solid business. So you want to define those solutions that you're offering. And this usually has to do with achieving something that's in their control to achieve and something specific that they need. And this is what makes a business sustainable over time, is that you're actually helping people do something good so that they're going to tell their friends. Your word of mouth is going to increase. Your reputation is going to increase. And you're not going to be one of those people who just says, well, I can help anybody. I'll just do whatever, and price your things according to what I call race to the bottom pricing, which is pricing by the word, pricing by the page, pricing by the hour. And in order to get out of that, you have to work in your zone of genius on all three of these levels. Step 4 in building an effective book coaching business is to set up solid systems. So you need to understand that systems are the antidote to chaos. I can speak from deep personal experience here because I was in the beginning running an incredibly chaotic business. I didn't even know what a system was. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what a workflow was, which is simply a repeatable thing that you do with every client or you do at every milestone. And systems are all over your business. And if you can understand what they are and define what they are and refine what they are, things are going to be much, much better. So a system is any repeatable step that you can take with a client. And this is the reason why choosing a specific client is so important, because you know what that type of client needs and you can repeat it every single time. If you're working with anybody who comes in the door, then you're making up a custom service or a custom product for every single person that comes to you. And that is wildly inefficient. So we want to look for systems and processes that work for the kinds of clients we want to serve, and then find the clients who need that thing. It's a very different mindset, and it can lead to incredibly elegant businesses where you know exactly who you're serving and you know exactly how you're serving them. So this allows you to look for efficiencies in every part of your business. And that means everything from how you're doing your marketing to how you're connecting with potential clients, whether you're having a discovery call with them, and when you do those calls, how long those calls are, how are you sharing your pages with your clients? How are you sharing your edits? Is it through email? Is it through Google Drive? Is it through a shared Dropbox folder? Understanding exactly how you're going to logistically share the work back and forth? How will they know when it's time for them to look at your edits? How will you know when it's time to look at theirs? How will you block time off to do that sort of work? The more you can design repeatable processes and systems, the more effective your business is going to be and the more money you're going to make. So there can be technology solutions for a lot of different systems in your business. Something as simple as a calendar app like Calendly or Acuity is a simple example. And even building response templates in Gmail is a simple example that can save you a lot of headaches. And one of the joys of being a book coach is there's always something new to learn. And I find that people who like book coaching like to learn. And sometimes we get nervous about technology, but technology is here in case you hadn't noticed, and can be incredibly helpful in the systems that you need to set up. So if you need to embrace technology and get more comfortable with it and learn some of it, that is something to write down as a skill that you need to develop, because there are so many great technology solutions out there, and you can really leverage these technologies to run a more efficient business. Step 5 is, after you've identified that ideal client, you want to connect with them. And this is really what marketing is connecting with your ideal client. That's all it is. So you've got to make peace with marketing. And marketing doesn't have to be gross or dirty or slimy or anything. It can actually be a really lovely experience. And how you get there is that you decide what works for you. Who are your clients and where can you meet them? And I know coaches that do all kinds of really interesting things. One coach made an arrangement with a coffee shop to offer coffee walks, where a writer can come and get a coffee and they'll go on a walk in the forest and have a plot walk and talk about their book. And that's a thing that this coach does to market her work. It has nothing to do with social media or posting here and there or running ads or anything like that. It's connecting with people. That's what marketing is. You can connect through local libraries or business groups or online groups that you're part of. And part of this has to do with who your ideal client is, but how you connect with them is simply letting them know what you have to offer, probably making something to be generous to them, to share with them, to let them know what it is that you do. What I'm doing here today is marketing, in effect. Not in effect, it is. I'm talking about what I do. I'm letting you know what it is. I'm sharing what I know. I am hopefully being useful and generous. And I love doing this kind of thing. It's really fun for me and is meaningful to me. So you want to find a thing that feels like that to you, because then it's not a chore. If it feels like a chore, you're not going to do it. So it's making peace with marketing and learning about how you can effectively do it. I have a couple of resources that I would suggest for learning about marketing. My friend Dan Blank, who I mentioned earlier, runs some really great programs around marketing for writers, and I think it's very effective for book coaches as well. He is on Substack and shares every week a lot of very valuable information about being in the world as a person marketing in the world of books. I also really like a man named Tad Hargrave, who you can find at marketingforhippies.com. He has an incredibly different approach to marketing, which is, you can just tell by his business name, Marketing for Hippies. But it's a lot of book coaches really resonate with his teachings, and he has an incredible amount of free material. Talk about being generous. You can learn so much about choosing an ideal client, what your point of view is in terms of marketing, which is your stance or your beliefs or your mission, how to reach those people. He has so much great content. You can find him at his website or on YouTube. But if you're nervous about marketing, those are two resources that I recommend that might help you become less nervous. And the best way to market is to take small, repeatable actions. That's a concept that I learned from Pam Slim, who's the author of a book called The Widest Net. And it's also the foundation of James Clear's work in Atomic Habits, which you should read if you haven't. Marketing doesn't happen all at once. It's not a big boom thing that happens like, okay, I shall now market my business. It's a habit of doing small things effectively over time. That's why you want to do things that you like, because you're not going to do them repeatedly over the time if you don't like them. So you want to do small, repeatable actions, something that is easy to do, that's easy to do consistently, that you can have joy doing, and find that thing that works for you in terms of actually connecting with those ideal readers. And then I mentioned this before, but being generous. I think the best way to connect with potential clients is to be generous, to make something that can help them solve a small part of that problem that you're going to help them with in a larger way. You can share these in all the places where your ideal clients gather, and it feels good to be of service and to show people what you can do. I think there is a fine line between being generous and being a doormat. So you have to be careful. I'm not a fan of giving away a lot of work in terms of sometimes I'll hear people say, oh, I'll edit a chapter to show you how I work, or I'll do a free hour-long call so you can see how we vibe. I'm not a fan of that. I think when you're actually doing the coaching work and the editing work, you don't want to give that away without some kind of strategy for why you're doing it. So you do have to be careful about how much to be generous. But in general, being generous and helpful is a great way to market your work. There are a lot of online groups that prohibit outright selling of services or talking about services, but there's nothing that prevents you from being helpful to people or uplifting people or sharing resources that can help people. You know, they don't have to be your own resources. They can just be things you've seen or things you know. I think of it as being a good literary citizen is a great way to be generous. Step 6 is a mindset thing, and that is to believe in yourself. The truth is that a lot of people have imposter syndrome around doing this work. They think they would be good at it, but then they start convincing themselves that they can't. So you really have to believe that you can meet any challenge that comes up in your business, that you have what it takes, and that you can solve whatever comes your way. I recently got myself into a bit of a pickle around I took a class to learn a new technology. I invested a lot of time, effort, energy, and money in this class, and I found myself kind of over my head. And I was feeling a lot of despair and maybe throwing myself on the ground and whining in front of my husband. And then I just had to tell myself, I can figure this out. I figured out a lot before. I'm just going to take it slow. I'm going to take it step by step. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to show up every day in this class and I'm going to figure it out. And sure enough, I did. And most people can. And it feels really good to figure it out. So that's a very tangible example. But sometimes there are things that are not so tangible, and you have to believe that you can figure it out. So one key skill is to visualize your success. I think I often have writers try to visualize their book on the shelf before they start to write. It's part of what the blueprint does, is to help them understand, what am I writing? How is it going to be in the world? What do I want this book to do for me, to mean to me, to how is it going to function in my life once it's out there? If they can visualize the book, it can really help them write it. And I think the same is true for running a book coaching business. So really imagine what it would be like to have this business. Imagine the kind of people that you would serve and what your days would be like. And imagine what it would feel like for one of your writers to meet with a great deal of success. How would that feel? I was very surprised to learn that I was as excited when my clients felt or achieved success as when I did on my own as a writer. I couldn't differentiate between the feeling. It was so exciting to help somebody achieve what they wanted to achieve. I loved it. And so visualizing what it would feel like to help your clients is a great way to help yourself believe in the business. And then invest in the support that you need. And by invest, I mean, I'm talking about time. Being an entrepreneur is hard work, and having other people around you who are building businesses can really help lift you up and also help you avoid a lot of the common pitfalls. You can learn from other people, you can pass on what you know. And one thing to say about this is we're at the very, very beginning of this industry of book coaching. Everybody that's doing this work is a pioneer in the field because it's brand new. There is so much room. There's room for all of us. And so I think to connect with other people and lift them up and surround yourself with people who are uplifting others too is an important way to invest in your own self. So if there was someone in this chat, for example, who lives near you, or maybe you learning that they want to work in the same genre as you, try to connect with that person and meet them online and follow them online and see who they are, or reach out to someone who's doing this kind of work and ask them what it's like, or how they got into it. It's just realizing that nobody's your competitor. We're all in this together. We can all be allies to each other. And a quick example of this, the other day I saw publisher Jessie Finkelstein, who started a company called Page Two Books in Canada. She came from the traditional publishing space, and I think Page Two has been in existence about 10 years. And I saw a post on, I think it was LinkedIn, where she was sharing a photo of a lunch that she had with the publishers from Girl Friday, which is another hybrid publisher. And if you know anything about these two publishers, you would think that they were competitors. They publish similar books in a similar way, in a similar space. And here they were having lunch and talking about how it was so great to have business friends and how much they admired each other, and they were lifting each other up. And I just loved that. I thought it was a perfect example of what I mean by investing in support. They had invested in this business friendship and in taking the time to meet each other after 10 years and to support each other and be there for each other. I thought it was beautiful. The last step is to do excellent work. You've got to figure out a way to give your clients what they need. Doing excellent work is the single best way to build a good book coaching business, because satisfied clients refer their writer friends, and the writing world is both very large and very small. The word is going to go out like ripples in a pond, and by helping people and doing excellent work, you're going to build your reputation and spread your reputation. You also want to just continue to look for ways to serve. That's doing excellent work as well. You might add additional programs over time. You might add retreats or group coaching or mentoring or VIP intensive days. A lot of people start with one-on-one work, and as their business grows, they look for different ways to serve and to build. And that's doing excellent work too. And then finally, continue to build your confidence. Doing excellent work feels good, which is motivating. If you feel like you're helping your writers and you feel like you are doing work that has meaning and purpose, you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to keep doing it better. So excellence is the basis of so much good work. So those are the 7 steps. I want to take about 20 seconds to share some resources for learning more. You can watch a free video series at bookcoaches.com/ABC. That's bookcoaches.com/ABC. There's 7 FAQ videos there that you can watch about book coaching. I also have a free newsletter called The Art and Business of Book Coaching at Substack. That's jennienash.substack.com. You can learn more there. And if you would like that, on that ABC page, that bookcoaches.com/ABC page, at the bottom of that course, at the bottom of that page, there's a course. It's a $199 course on building a 1-page book coaching business plan. And you can grab that course for free until April 30th with the code from Jennie, and that has to be all caps from Jennie. And at the end of that, anyone who's not already enrolled in our program can sign up for a one-on-one call with me, and I'd be happy to talk to you about your situation and any questions that you have if you've gone through that course. There's that option there at the end. So that's it on the slides, and it's time for a few Q&As.
Thank you so much, Jennie. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Right. I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down.
Okay.
G. Spencer asks, when did book coaching become a business? I've only been hearing about it, or everyone seems to be doing it now, for the past couple years. Did it come out of publishers laying off editors?
It's a great question. Yeah, all the cool kids are book coaches. I think it's just that kind of thing when once you hear about it, then you hear about it everywhere else. It came out of the changes in the publishing industry that things got, I mean, it's a long, complicated answer, but things, the internet put the means of production into the hands of every writer, and that changes the nature of publishing. Publishing became faster. More editors have more projects on their plate. They don't have time to edit. A lot of editors don't have time to edit. And whenever I say that, people are all up in arms and say, well, my editor does, or my friend's editor does. Sure, there are people who edit, but not most editors. And the same actually is true with agents now too. Agents used to perform the function of editors when editors no longer could, and now agents are often too busy to edit. So what happened was this nurturing function got squeezed out of publishing. And where there's a vacuum, there's going to be a business that jumps in to fill it. So the short answer is it came from vast and fast changes in the publishing industry. And I'd love to invite Jane to add anything to that, because this is her area of expertise too.
Oh, that was great.
Okay.
I think the only thing I'd add is I do feel like there are more people than ever attempting to write something. And I don't know if that's a generational thing. It's hard for me to say. But I do think there are more potential clients out there than there were when I started in the business.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that is I think the pandemic amplified both of these things a lot. The pandemic, so many people took the time to write books during the pandemic, and then they realized, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or oh, I would be embarrassed to bring this out. I need help, or wow, getting a book published is harder than I thought. So it's sort of the pandemic unleashed a lot of latent desires of people to be writers.
Yes. Yeah. Lauren's wondering, if someone decides to work with a book coach, will they still need to hire an editor after writing it? And there's someone who's jumping in, adding, you'll still want a copy editor or a proofreader as part of the publishing process. What do you have to say on this?
Yes, absolutely. It does not in any way prevent the need for an actual edit, a copy edit, and usually a proofread. Those are two different functions, and those are both different from book coaching. So book coaching, in my mind, comes before production, and a book in production is going to be edited and copy edited and proofread, maybe all three. So yeah. It doesn't prevent any of that.
Allison asks, have you trained coaches more interested in the creation, teaching, coaching, prepping for submission aspects of this business than market research? Do you think the market research piece is a marketable niche?
Yes, it's all marketable. And actually the number that we gave at the beginning is incorrect. I've now certified more than 220 book coaches. I know, which is wild. And so I can say that there are people that I have personal knowledge of who are working in all aspects of book coaching. So in other words, if somebody doesn't want to have anything to do with pitching, then that's what I mean by defining your outcome. What are you helping your writer do? Are you helping them finish a manuscript? That's a thing a lot of people want. then you could say that's where my services end and you need to go elsewhere to do the next bit. Or there are people who specialize in helping folks determine their path to publishing, and other people that don't want to have anything to do with that. So that you can be anywhere that you want to be. I mean, the thing that I always say is most people need somewhere around the neighborhood of 30 clients a year to run a good business. So are there 30 people that need what you're offering? Probably, no matter what it is, right? Yes, I hope that answers the question.
It does. So at the very beginning, you mentioned all of the things that a book coach does, which we've just been discussing. Kathy wonders if you would differentiate between a book coach and a writing coach.
Oh, what a good question. A writing coach is, I often have people come to me and say, I write a blog. Will you help me with my blog every week? And my answer is no, I work with book coaches and I work with I work with book writers and I work with a specific kind of book writer. But a writing coach would be somebody who would do that. Or there's a fantastic woman named Anne Handley. I think her name is Handley. And she is a very well known business writing coach. She has a fantastic newsletter. It's very technical, meaning she talks about what's a good sentence, what's a clear sentence, how do you write in a way that you don't sound like a computer, all these sorts of things. That's what I think of as a writing coach. She's a great example of one. And so she's helping people be better writers in all the ways that we write: emails, blogs, speeches, annual reports, all those very important things. I think of a book coach as somebody who's focused on book writing.
If someone doesn't have publishing industry experience, are there book coaches who simply get you to this, okay, it's time for you to find an agent? Or would you really be calling yourself a developmental editor only if you're not going to deal with the business aspects of submission?
Well, I think the difference to me, a developmental editor is somebody who takes a manuscript that when it's done and does the work on that manuscript. So a book coach is usually somebody who would then say, okay, here are the 5 things this manuscript needs. Let me help you execute those. Next week, I want to see you do X. And then after that, we're going to do Y. And then the third deadline, you're going to do Z. So it's that project management aspect of helping the writer execute. One of the reasons that book coaches are a thing is because I frequently get calls from agents who say, this writer is working on a book proposal, which is my specialty, and they need a lot of help. Will you help them? So the agent doesn't know or doesn't have the time to help them execute the things that they need help on. So the same would be true with a manuscript, where you would do a developmental edit and then you would say, let me help you execute those things. So book coach, I think of as somebody who is in the process with the writer over a longer period of time. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. There are folks who are wondering if you could speak a little bit about the range of fees. We've got one question from Sharon who says that sometimes our clients are shocked by our fees, which she considers minimal, and how do you get around the sticker shock? And then someone else just wondering, can you give me an idea of the range that's being charged?
Yes. So this I could do a whole presentation just on the money, and we don't have time, but I'm going to give you an example because I think the story is the best answer. So here's the story. You can go on to Reedsy or Fiverr if you need a query letter edit. So you're a writer, you're going to query, and you want someone to look over your query letter. You want to make sure it's great. You can hire somebody. I can promise you, if you go look right now, you can hire someone for $25 to edit your query letter. Great. So now you have your query letter edited. Well, so I'm no longer one-on-one coaching because I'm running my business. But when I was charging $8,500 to do the same work. So what is that? That's nuts, right? What was I doing? What is the difference? The difference is I do not think that having a good query letter is what people need. I think what people need is to make sure that their manuscript is ready to pitch, which it's usually not. I think people need to understand a strategy for pitching, which they don't. I think people need to do really excellent agent research so that they're pitching the right agents, which they usually don't as well. It's usually, well, my friend's cousin's college roommate is an agent, I'm going to send it to them. I think people don't understand how to market their work, how to talk about it. So I stopped doing one-off query edits or first chapter edits or that sort of pitch help, because what I saw was that when people did thorough, strategic, excellent work, their odds of getting an agent increased exponentially. So I specialized in working with the people that wanted that. And so what the work then is then to convince people, what do I do that's worth $8,500? Why would anybody do that? That's my job, to convince them and to show them. And to do what I'm doing right now is to say, sure, you can have a query edit, but you're missing out on all of these things. And this is what it takes. And this is what I would do with you. And this is what the outcome you would get. So I talk about that a lot, is you can now go pitch with utter confidence that you are not just throwing darts at a board. You can have a strategic way of approaching that. So this is a very extreme example. I was at the very extreme high end of what book coaches charge. But the way that you charge more money is you offer more value and you articulate what that value is. You don't just give people what they say they want, which I know is sort of odd. Everybody wants a query edit. That's not what they really want. What they really want is to have a successful pitch process, to not feel their stomach churn because you got one shot with an agent. So it's a whole mindset shift of thinking, what am I offering? What is the value? How can I truly serve what writers need, and to think differently about it? So in terms of what people make, as I said before, I don't like people talking about charging by the hour. I like people talking about charging by what they're delivering. That's how you make money, is you deliver high value. You deliver what people really need. So you sort of get out of that. I call it race to the bottom pricing. Like, it's nuts to be charged by the page or the word. And are there people who will pay that? Absolutely. There's gazillions of people who will pay or look for the lowest price, but there's also a whole lot of people who understand, a whole lot of writers who understand, this is really important to me. I want to give it my best shot. I'm going to invest money in this. And you would be surprised at how many people would gladly pay to have the help they really need. So that's my very fast lecture on that.
This is very useful. Thank you. All right. Are you okay staying on a little bit longer?
I am, yeah.
Okay. All right. So Maya says, after having edited for clients in traditional publishing, but increasingly self-publishing writers, I feel called to work with clients seeking traditional publishing only. Would this be a mistaken strategy?
No, not at all. I think it's really useful to choose. And I mean, gosh, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of writers being published traditionally every year. There's also millions being self-publishing, and university presses, small presses, hybrid presses. There's so many ways to be published. And if you want to focus on any one of those ways, that's fantastic. It's really defining who you want to serve, how you want to serve them. What is it about traditional publishing that you can add value to those people for? What do you know about it? How can you help them? There's no niche that is not. I mean, I have a coach who specializes in helping chronically ill writers. She herself is chronically ill. She knows what it's like to try to write when chronically ill. What a fantastic niche. I have another coach who specializes in helping writers with ADHD. A lot of writing instruction does not work for them. and she has found out what does, and she specialized in helping that kind of writer. There's so many different ways that you can niche down, and it's so critically important. That's why I point people to Tad Hargrave's work on niching, the marketing for hippies on niching. He's so good about niching and why people resist it, but why it's actually the answer to so many problems. So there is no thing, if you're thinking, gosh, I really want to coach, and then fill in the blank of some really narrow, esoteric, I mean, it can be anything. Spanish speaking writers in El Salvador who want to write in English. That's another one of my coaches. I mean, anything. It's totally possible.
I couldn't agree more. It's the advice I give again and again and again and again. For some reason, people just don't believe it. I think maybe it's fear that you're not casting the net wide enough, fear that you won't have enough clients, fear that, yeah, that there will not be enough. Um,
Right.
but it's paradoxical. It's the opposite that happens.
Right.
Okay. So I think I know how you'll answer this question, but just to be clear about it, Beth says, I've published 10 traditional novels, 3 women's fiction, 7 middle grade. My love is women's fiction. Would it be harder to walk that path as a coach if much of my published work is middle grade?
Um, Beth, I would say you've got all kinds of skills and talents and experience that you can leverage, and I would say do it. Where you love to work is where you're going to have the most fun working. I've seen a lot of people make a shift bigger even than the one you're talking about. The thing that you lose, the little step that you lose is a little, I would say, credibility in terms of marketing, but that I have seen over time that matters so much less if you're really clear about who you're helping and why you're helping them. So it's what your mission is, why it matters to you. And sometimes you can use that background to explain why you've made that shift. After X years of writing this, I'm moving into whatever because it's what I love to read. It's what I've loved to read since I was 16 years old. It's where I think about all the time. It's, and here's why I'm going to be good at it because of this work I've done over here. It's all about your messaging, your marketing, your mission, all of those things. So you could absolutely make that shift. Just know that your marketing the wheel might take a little while to get churning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, we'll end on this question because I think the answer might be take your free class. Andrea wonders, what's the best way to determine your book coaching niche or your ideal client?
I'm trying to think about that. What is the best way to determine that? Yes, that free class will start. Yeah, absolutely start you down the path. Yes, it will start you down the path. The other thing that I would say is follow me on Substack because I'm going to be doing a pricing course coming up, and I'm going to be doing a niching course coming up. I mean, not coming up like tomorrow. I mean, over the next 4 or 6 months, I'm doing a series of courses on these most frequent needs that coaches have, and I write about those things all the time in my free newsletter. You don't have to buy anything from me to get that advice. So I would say that, and then I would say Tad Hargrave doesn't even know who I am. I'm out here talking about him all the time. But that it's actually a perfect example to end on. He does excellent work. He's super niche. I mean, if you don't like the hippie thing, you're not going to like him. He's incredibly helpful and effective. All the things I've talked about. And what am I doing? I'm out here talking about him all the time. That's how marketing works. And I would like to think there's somebody out there talking about me as much as I'm talking about him. I hope so because I would go look at his niche work. It's really excellent.
His site's terrific. I hadn't heard of him until you mentioned him in the session, unbelievably. And yeah, it's just really welcoming. If you're his person or his type, like if you're going to be able to learn from him, you're going to know it immediately. It's just so well done.
He also does this thing that I just have to say because I find it so delightful. If anybody's thinking, but I hate marketing, He has this thing called puttering sessions where you sign up to talk to him while he's cleaning his house. So he will not look at a computer. He will not look at any pieces of paper. He's not reading anything. He will just talk to you, and he might be vacuuming or doing dishes. He's got this whole list of things that you can solve in a puttering session. Like, talk about doing what you love, and go read his puttering session sales page. It's one of his top navigation things. It's like what we're talking about. How can somebody charge for that? You're thinking like, what? And it's expensive. I think it's $450 or something for like a 30-minute puttering session. And it's like, who would do that? Well, read his thing and see how convincing it is and what he offers. It's a great example of it. It makes me smile every time. Someday it's all I'm going to do is puttering sessions.
What a great name.
I know.
All right. The next free session I'm doing next month, I'm actually going to be in conversation with Isaac Saul of the Tangle newsletter. Those of you who follow me closely know that I really love the Tangle newsletter. It's about politics. And it sounds strange to say that you love a politics newsletter, but the way that it's done is just superlative. So I've just put the link to that conversation, which will be happening on May 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Me and Isaac Saul. We'll be talking about the business of running a paid newsletter, but I also will be talking to him about how he manages to do this and stay sane, keep his good sense of humor, because he has a lot of interaction with his readers. So I
I
hope to
love
see,
that. Sounds
yeah,
great.
yeah, I hope to see lots of you there. And thank you again, Jenny. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Bye bye.